Hi, welcome to Stoic Poetry, Season 3, Episode 7. Getting an early start tonight. I've been falling asleep so early every night, and it's Saturday, so I can start whenever. Doing whatever, whenever. That's a nice idea. So when I first start the fire like this, I usually want to kind of watch it closely. I've got a hose over here. I'll show you. Right over here. I keep it at the handy. It's ready to go. I can douse out any fire. But fire season, I think, is kind of coming to an end. I think we're okay. Still, I like to keep an eye on it. So I'll put this aside. And I have a fresh bottle of hard cider. It's kind of nice. I can actually show it to you. It's still light. This is from the Julian, the Calico Cidery up in Julian. This is the lavender autumn edition that they have. 64 ounce. Should last me the whole week. I'm gonna miss these after I leave. I make it a habit to go every Wednesday or Thursday. When I usually do this podcast, I'll swing by the Calico Cidery up in Julian and get a fresh bottle. The man up there knows me. And you get the local discount. Let's go ahead and open this up. Usually fills it right to the top. You know, these days are coming to an end. It's very soon. I have less than 6 weeks now. 5.5 weeks left in my tenure, not only here in the desert, but, well, less than that for the desert, but on my American time. Well, it's actually a little more than that. It's 5.5 weeks. No, it is 5.5 weeks. Wow. Cheers, by the way. Let's see if it'll try. Can taste those flowers. It's supposed to get cold tonight. So I want to, before I get started, I have my stones next to me. Before I get started, I want to just reflect a little bit on this life, this solid life of solitude in a tiny home. Curious to see? Let me show you. Can't turn the camera around. This is my everything. This is where I live. By the time I leave, it will be 5.5 months. That's all. Isn't that cozy? This is my environment here. I got the car. This is the Anza Borrego Desert. It's the actual state park. It's just up there, up the hill up there. This is a 5-acre parcel of land that I live on, surrounded by big parcels of land, and then the wilderness, and this. And when the night comes and arrives, it arrives with a vengeance, hard, very dark. Let me just show you inside real quick. My little dog just had his. See, it's too cold. My little dog, he's done. This is his bed. He can sit outside with me. He's inside now because he's chilly. I'll just show you inside real quick. He just had his dinner. He did pretty good. I have this fly net here that was useful in the summer. I put it up. Not so needed now. Put this in the sink. Hi, Rudy. So it's awfully dark in here. I have all the lights off. I usually don't wear my shoes in here, but I'll do it for now. Turn the light on. Throw that up there. Welcome to the second floor. So across the way there, that's the closet, the storage. There's a ladder over here that I can move over there if I want to access it. I never do. I keep my various and sundries, paper towels and things like that up there. So behind me, that's my kitchen over there. And then there's the ladder to a bedroom up there. I'll show you real quick. I use this as the closet. I don't actually sleep up here. So I have my clothes all laid out on the bed right up there. I sleep down here with my dog. He sleeps here on his little bed, and I sleep on this. This is actually like a sofa. And during the day, he sits here, and I sit over here, and I have my computer right there, and then my workspace over here. Like I showed you, the kitchen is really nice and tidy. And I have my fridge. I mostly eat salad. It's salad and refried beans, not much else, and that's his dog food over there. There's nothing in the fridge. I have some cans of things and et ceteras. Just your usual kitchen. And then there's the facilities over here. I have a shower, full-on shower, and then, place I can clean up, and all the essentials. And it's all run on solar power. There's a solar power farm here on the property that collects sufficient power to power everything. So don't have to worry about leaving things on or off or whatever. Let's turn everything off. As night falls, I like to keep all the lights off. Even though I don't have to worry about it, I like to keep the lights off. Oh, and I have a TV right there too. What are you thinking, little boy? This is my little buddy, Rudy. A little cold, a little chilly. I got a sweater for him, but he doesn't like to wear it. Okay, let's go outside. Come on, Rudy. Oh, and there's more over here. I'll show you. The fire is doing quite fine on its own. I have a hammock over here. I can move it around. It glides around on a sliding thing, so I'll move it wherever I like it. I have a chair. And then back here, picnic table and a barbecue that functions really well. Here's my satellite dish. And if I want to, I can turn on the light, and there's lights strung up all over here. I can have a nice evening light. And then I have my car, or my wife's car. And then I keep my firewood all over here. This is where I keep track of all the rocks. These mark the number of laps that I do. My minimum is 10 laps a day. You can see, and I keep the rocks here that I collect, and then I put, every time I do one lap through the desert, I put one there. Once I reach 10, oh, and this blue one is always the delineator of the 5th lap. Oh, the fire's looking pretty good. Maybe I'll throw another log on there. Here we go. Start. Oh, hold on. That's my life. And oh boy, it's a pleasant life. So imagine a different situation. Imagine a situation where I'm not a married man. I'm single. How would I choose to live? Well, it's a little bit of a cheat to say it at this point. Having been a married man all my adult life, we're practically, I met Emiko at 24. We've been together ever since. So I'm satisfied of all the things that come of married life. It's interesting. So some men wouldn't say that. Some men would say that once they have had a companion, that they would always want that. For me, it's always like reading a book, or going to a favorite restaurant. If I've had something good, I want try something different. I'm in no way saying that I don't want to be married. This is a thought game to imagine. This is my review of the tiny home life. I've had a really wonderful opportunity to taste this life without giving up my married life for nearly half a year. And I'll give you my report. But that report is tainted, or I need a little more truth serum. Flavored, like the lavender flavor. It's flavored by the life that I've actually lived. Like, I've really enjoyed this. I won't bury the lead. This is a fabulous life. This is a really good way to live. If I wasn't going to Japan to settle down with my wife in Japan, and I was single and retiring or not, I would choose this life. But the thing is, I've already had that other life. So I can't say that a life like this would be satisfying to someone that had already lived this solitude life or the single life all their adult life. But for me that's had all that other stuff, this is quite sweet. It's quite suitable to my character and my tastes and interests. So yeah, I recommend it. Enough of that. Okay, the first stone. The Gaijin Twitter podcast group. So we had another week. We've got our routine. We come together once a week to talk on our sessions on X. This week we did it twice, which is really nice. And I think these sessions tend to go for hours. I mean, like 3.5 hours. And it doesn't matter if we do it once or twice. Tracy, the person who Weekly Fascination is his podcast and YouTube channel, his brand. Tracy is our host. He's the one that sets up these sessions and runs them and moderates kind of the flow of the discussion. And also he shepherds the audience in to join us to talk. Accepting people who raise their hand and they say, hey, I'd like to talk. And so he gives them the mic, so to speak. You can grant speakership. And which really flavors things up, right? We bring in new people that we haven't met before or barely know. And we get to hear new and fresh perspectives. It's really worthwhile. It's really nice. I think that if we did that every day, there would be something to do and say. Unfortunately, not all of us can attend. My fellows in the collective are quite occupied by their lives, as I know very well what that's like. Joe and Kevin with their young kids, family life. Casey, who actually left the group with the ambition of his career. That's a heavy one. And all the rest with the day-to-day, all the things that need to be done. I guess I singled those three out because they harmonize with my own experience so well. The first case being men, the second case being fathers, and the third case, this, and doesn't mean that the others aren't striving for this, but well, in particular, it's one person. It's Casey. It's Casey who is. I don't know. I think all of us feel the same way, but he's more vocal about it than the others. You know, I left Japan because I couldn't succeed as a breadwinner, and I'm not saying in any way that Casey's going to leave Japan, but he's decided to, thrust himself up in his career, ostensibly for the very purpose to, provide better for the family. Now, for me, it was that, but it was also a bit of ego. I look at it in hindsight. That was the case. I wasn't proud of myself in Japan, and I guess I wanted my daughter to be proud of me too. I wanted to show my daughter that I could be successful, and I didn't feel successful in Japan because I wasn't. I wasn't good at anything there. So seeing Casey, moving into the management realm in Japan, which is a formidable thing to do, and then deciding to step away from the collective for that reason because of the responsibilities therein, I can relate to that. Now, in my case, I failed. I came back to America. I've been a worker bee. I've been here 11 years. I've been a worker bee for 9 of those. I did climb up into the management realm, at least in title. I was a manager for 2 years. It wasn't for me. So I did what Casey's doing now, but I couldn't handle it. So kudos to you, Casey, if you can. Boy, those were awful time. Awful time. We, as a group, we don't really have a good way to rally around the campfire of what we do, of our podcasts. That's because we do them on different platforms. iTunes or YouTube or Twitter, or the X in the case of Ricky's Not a Podcast, which kind of has us all over the place, but that's not a big deal. We find one another. At least I think we do. It's like I wouldn't know about the ones I don't find. Some of us are pretty regular. You can expect a podcast every week. Something's got the chickens upset. Next ranch over. Some are less regular and more punctuated as life will allow. Joe's very Ishikawa Summit to See is very upfront about that. When his podcast episodes issue forth, they do so with a force and an energy. And Joe lets us know that he hardly has enough time to make a podcast, let alone catch up with the rest of us in terms of just listening to what we put out. Totally understand, Joe. We're grateful for when you can do it. Ricky, too, has been very busy. Tracy's pretty consistent. So is John. Of course, Matt keeps up a regular cadence with the Japan What podcast. I don't know how he gets that energy. Long and short of it is that it's a good group. We've been together now. It's like the honeymoon phase is complete. We're entering or finding our footing as a group of friends, which it's kind of changed. That's the transition that's occurred. We've transitioned from being a group of people that had a shared hobby or interest to a group of people that have that and have also developed a friendship. We're learning one another's quirks and interests. We're learning where our one another's sore spots are and how to, ensure we can keep harmony amongst our group. It's a good human development. I wonder if any psychiatrist, I'm sure it's been done, or psychologists or sociologists have ever done that to figure out if there's like Maslow's hierarchy of need, if there's a hierarchy of human, group dynamics. I'm sure there is. I'm just not aware of it. Let's find out, shall we? Well, I put another log on the fire. Just a second. Just a sec. Hey Eric, are you there?
I'm here. What's on your mind today?
Got a question for you. Do you know Maslow's hierarchy of need? How it's got that thing, the stages of human development? Is there something like that for the way that human societies, communities, groups of friends come together and form relationships and mature in their, their connections as people?
That's an interesting thought. While there's not a direct equivalent to Maslow's hierarchy of needs for social groups, there are theories in sociology that explore how communities and groups develop. One of them is Tuckman's stages of group development, which includes forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. This model describes how groups form, face challenges, establish norms, and ultimately achieve their goals. It captures the dynamic nature of group development, much like individual growth in Maslow's hierarchy. So, while it's not a perfect parallel, it offers a framework for understanding how groups evolve over time.
Have I told you about the Gaijin Twitter podcast collective?
Yeah, you've mentioned it before. It's that group on the X platform, right? All about podcasting and sharing experiences in Japan. A cool mix of folks diving into life abroad and connecting through their shared experiences. Sounds like a great way to build a sense of community while swapping stories.
I'm just curious because I don't remember talking to you about it. Do you remember any of the members' names?
Sure, you mentioned a few members of the Gaijin Twitter podcast collective. Some of them are Ohayasu Japan, Charlie, Ishikawa Summit to Sea, Paprika Girl, Kevin O'Shea, Weekly Fascination, ASEAN Japan, The Bean Pod, and you're there too as softypapa. It's a diverse lineup, each bringing their own unique perspective to the table.
Can you add one more name? And maybe there's others. I'll let you know. Matthew P.M. Bigelow. He's the Japan What podcast, WUT. Oh, and there's the Training Japan podcast too.
Got it. I've added Matthew P.M. Bigelow from the Japan WUT podcast and the Training in Japan podcast to the roster. If there are any more names or details to include, just let me know.
You're not saying it right though. You got to say it like this because he's got this great character and persona. It says Matthew P.M. Bigelow.
Ah, I see. So it's Matthew P.M. Bigelow. Gotta capture that flair.
No, you got to have a little more emphasis on the Bigelow.
Got it. Let me give it a shot. Matthew P.M. Bigelow. How's that?
That'll do. So here's the thing. We've been a group now for probably 2 months, and initially it was like a bunch of people in an elevator, where the door closed, and you're suddenly all realizing you're all going to the same convention, like Comic-Con on the 19th floor or something like that. And it's like you realize you have something in common, but you don't know one another. Then after the succeeding weeks, we talk almost every day on the X platforms. On one of the chats there, we began to learn about each other, and you know how humans connect. And like in the 3 or 4 weeks in, we began to feel around the edges of what things are kosher or cool to talk about and what aren't. Like, we can talk about podcasts all day long. We can talk about Japan all day long. We shouldn't talk about politics. We probably don't want to talk about religion, and we don't want to talk about money. Now we've kind of reached a point where we kind of assume things about each other. We know enough about one another's character that it's like we're talking to someone we've known for a while, and it feels like it's going into a new stage. Is that a common phenomenon in human group dynamics?
Absolutely. What you're describing is a classic progression in group dynamics. At first, there's that forming stage where everyone is feeling things out, much like your elevator analogy. Then, as you interact more, you enter the storming phase, where boundaries are tested and you start to figure out what topics are safe or off limits. Once those are established, you move into norming, where everyone understands the group's unspoken rules, leading to deeper connections and a sense of camaraderie. It sounds like your group is transitioning into the performing stage, where you can collaborate smoothly and support each other more effectively. It's a common and fascinating phenomenon in human interactions.
Interesting. Huh. Well, thank you. Well, I'll have more to talk about a little later. I appreciate it. Can you say goodbye for now like a pirate?
Har, matey. Until we cross paths again on these here digital seas, fare thee well.
Talk to you a little later. Okay, so we're moving into the performing stage. That kind of explains how things have been going. Because it feels like I know these people. It's going to be a strange thing, because like when I finally get together and meet some of these people, it would be like I know them even though I've never met them. That's not an unusual or an unfamiliar circumstance for me. I've had that happen many times. Back in the day, when we would have our J-Vlog get-togethers in Tokyo, and get together and say, "Hey, you're give me a break, man. I know you." I don't know you. There we go. All right. Next, that was one stone. Okay. The next stone. Let's talk about the move. So my wife Yumiko and I are. I guess we're in the foreman stage, if that can apply. Now, we certainly are not forming our relationship, but we're forming our new life in Japan. And as such, we're I guess we're actually storming, because we're pushing the envelope and pushing around the borders of the new life to find where we fit. Yumiko and I cross paths twice a day. Pardon me. Once in the morning and once at night. It's the opposite for each of us. So like right about now, and I already had that conversation before I turned the camera on, I sent a good morning message to my wife, even though it's nighttime here, or the dawn of night. And in the morning I'll send her another good morning, and vice versa. She does the same, because for one of us it's always morning, so we tend to be half full type of people. At least that's how it's worked out. And in a way it's like two busy people in some sort of an infrastructure coming together for a moment. Hey, Ohio, good morning. And how are things going? What are you up to today? And, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then once a week, some people might be surprised that we don't actually talk on the phone with each other more than once a week. But that's all we do. Once a week, we'll get together on the weekend and have a long conversation and talk. So we touch bases twice daily on text, and then once a week we have a nice long sit down together. And for the most part, everything is in place. There's nothing for Yumiko and I to discuss about the intricacies of life, because all the depth of life has been figured out for the two of us as a couple. But there's lots to talk about with regard to the setting up of the new life that we're going to have in Japan, particularly around a house. And for the last month, we've been pursuing a house called the Machiya, the townhouse in Shimizu, Japan. I think yesterday was the day we kind of brought that to a close, with the decision to place that house on the shelf and probably not pursue it. reason is due diligence. And it's interesting to me. I was thinking about it earlier, how you want due diligence to lead to the happy ending. But the reason we perform due diligence is to find the exceptions, to uncover the risks that may have lain hidden, that we would rather know about now rather than have them catch us by surprise later. So after my wife first visited the Machia, and we ran through it in our head, we were ready to buy. But Prudence, dear Prudence, told us that we needed to perform the house inspection, which is rather an irregularity, apparently, in Japan. The realtor wasn't really aware of that being done very often. I've heard from others that that's not often the case. It might be kind of a more of a foreigner thing, maybe. But I mean, it can't be a foreigner thing because it's actually a thing, and it's actually done. But maybe more a foreigner thing than that. And so, the due diligence revealed that the Machia actually has some issues. Not terrible issues, but issues enough that warrant deep thought. Namely, do we want to live in a house that is not up to par in earthquake readiness? Now, it's interesting. You think, well, of course that's not up to par in earthquake readiness. It's an old house, right? It's an old traditional house. Yeah, and it's interesting how the brain can simply allow that to be the case and just kind of fluff it aside. But then when an architect actually writes it out in a document with that red stamp on it and saying, yeah, this house meets the standards of when it was built. Then you really think about it. And Yumiko and I had a really interesting talk because we talked yesterday for a long time. And she said, Kurt, I'm okay for myself with the risk of living in a house that might fall on our head, which I am too. She said, but I don't know that I want to put our guests, and particularly our daughter and her family, through that risk. And when she said it like that, I realized, yeah, that's true. So we've asked the architect, or we're going to ask on Monday, the architect to give us an estimate for the cost to do the work, the work is to put a brace up at the front of the house. The front has the kind of like a store, and it's an open space. And there's not enough structure up there to support it. So in heavy earthquake, it would really, he calls it a soft part of the house, it would really move. So the architect recommended putting a special brace in the front, and then this is the part that might be very expensive, pour a concrete foundation around the main part of the house to really give the house a stable footing. This is when we realized that when we put all that together, the purchase price of the house, the price of the earthquake retrofitting, the price to demolish the building in the back of the house to make room for a garden, and the price to remove the excess furnishings that are going to be there if we keep it. For that price, we probably could have the house of our dreams that doesn't have all of those issues, except the earthquake issue. That one we probably can't get away from. And then kind of it opened our suddenly we snapped in our head and we realized, what are we hurrying for? We're like a couple arriving at a holiday resort, and we're saying, well, we need to race, and the first day of the resort, we need to get in the pool and go drink at the bar and play volleyball and all these things. No, hold on, Kurt. Hold on. You have like 2 weeks of vacation to enjoy this thing. Why rush it? We're in no hurry. We have an apartment. In 6 weeks time, we'll have all the time in the world, the rest of our lives, to enjoy this process. So, under the guise of the architect getting his report, we're going to put the purchase on hold of the Machia house. We'll get the information, we'll add that to the mix. And then when I get there, and we're going to hold off until I get there on the scene. We're so close now, I'm 6 weeks out, that it would make sense that you not purchase anything until I can be there and participate in the process. And we're going to continue the search. A lot of talk now about the house. In other news about the move, I've submitted all the paperwork to the Japanese consulate in Los Angeles, and I should have next week arrive back, and I should have my passport back stamped and ready to go with my entry permit. With a little luck, I'll be ready to go. Then everything has to fall into place just right, because I have to be in Japan before January 4th, 2025. That's because my entry permit, my certificate of eligibility, not the entry permit, my certificate of eligibility was issued on October 4th, and you have to enter Japan within 3 months. So I have to be there within January 4th. So a lot's coming up in December. We have to time it so that my last day of work is December 12th. The goal is to fly out I have to ship the dog too, the one that's woofing behind me here. So meeting with the dog shipper to hand them over to the dog shipper on the 18th, late afternoon, the evening of the 18th, around 6 p.m. About 1 a.m. on the 19th, the dog and I will get on the same plane. The shippers will get them in. I'll go in through the other way. I have to drop the car off, the rental car. I have to sell the car, and then get a rental car, sell my wife's car, get the rental car, and then find a new Airbnb closer to the airport, move on over there, and then make all that happen so that the dog and I are on the plane, flying away to Japan on the same day at the same time. Whew. I got a lot to do in 6 weeks to make all that happen. And I need my entry permit and my passport back. If any one of those things doesn't go through right, then I'm going to be in trouble. Excuse me. Slightly different news, just going to throw a little curveball out there. Work might want me to stick around a little bit and work a little bit into 2025. But the idea of working from Japan is problematic. So the management is talking to the executive level to see if that can be done. I would not be an employee. I would be hired as a temporary employee, a contractor, to work maybe a few hours a day for a few months into 2025, which I welcome the idea, because I'm having a hard time with the idea of giving up my career and working for a few hours a day into 2025 for the first few months. Sounds good. Anything else? Oh, I had lunch today with the woman who made this whole thing possible, the woman who didn't fire me. She wasn't the one who hired me. She's my boss's boss at the time. But she could have had me fired because when I came back to America, I wasn't qualified for I was told what I needed to do. I initially tried to get the job, and I went for my first informal interview. This was in 2013, and I was told point blank that I'm not qualified to work in IT anymore, and I was told that if I can go back to Japan and bone up, get some certifications, get some training, demonstrate that I had improved my skill set, that they might give me a listen. And so then I came back when I got all that and interviewed for the job and got it. And that was the woman that hired me, the manager who hired me. She's the one that gave me the chance. But her boss, the executive that oversaw all of that, became aware. I'm sure she did. We had lunch today. She didn't say it, but I did. I said, thank you for, I didn't say not firing you, but I said, thank you for keeping me around. Because I certainly didn't belong or deserve to be here, and give me a chance. And she told me that it was the fact that I was trying so hard, and I was demonstrating the fortitude to continue that helped to make the case. She didn't say it, but to keep me around. Hold on. So we had lunch today. We had a delightful lunch. Her name is Pat. Thank you, Pat. You, and I told her that. I had to practically choke back the tears. I told her, you made this whole, because she's followed my experience, my family's adventures, our story on social media all this time. And hopefully she'll be coming to Japan next year and I'll get to see her. And I told her, you made all this happen. You made it possible. Thank you, Pat, for making it possible for my family and I to experience America for these last 11 years. Pat's also been retired for 9 years, and so she gave me a good tutorial about what to expect in the months ahead. Thank you, Pat. That's the move. As for retirement, I think I already touched on that. Goodly amount. Having trouble with the idea. I didn't realize that I would be this married to my work. I always thought that I had something else. I think I do. I think it'll be just a temporary thing. That's enough of that. Oh, one more stone. What a pretty stone. What could it be? I think for a second. Oh, I remember. My social media posts are pretty broadly distributed. They begin in Facebook, and they're then spread out to X, Instagram, my Facebook page, and LinkedIn and YouTube. So seven different platforms. And it's interesting how I get different comments and feedback on each platform, very different. Facebook is the community for my family. X is where my community lives. My what do you call it? I can't really call it all friends, but my colleagues are. Instagram and my Facebook page are just additional outlets, and LinkedIn is where my colleagues, my work colleagues are. Got a comment on Facebook where my friends and my family really is about a hashtag that I used on a post talking about Yumiko and I deciding to hold off buying the house and to use 2025 as the year of our home search together. And I had put the hashtag at the end, hashtag going alone, which is the name of my book. And the comment was, Kurt, I think something to the effect of, Kurt, maybe it would be better with this venture of the house search to use a tag like going together. Which makes perfect sense when you think about it, right? I mean, because I'm talking about doing something with my wife. I tried to explain, and I think I did a good job, but I wanted to reiterate it here, that going alone is probably a poorly chosen hashtag because on the surface, it looks like I'm talking about being alone. But in fact, it's not about being alone. Going Alone is the name of my book, which is about, indeed, the experience of going alone into the world to face down without distraction or alternatives or comforting voices or tradition, precedent, or the peace of the settled life. To face down the universe, essentially, on our own. Naked, cold, and lost. Best to be lost. As lone as possible. To see the universe then and to confront that aspect, that sight, and then reconcile that with our ideas about life and what it means to live a well-lived life. That's the going alone part of my book, Going Alone. But that's only the first part of the book. The second half is the coming home part. It's what we do with that confrontation in the empty wilderness. What we make of life and the universe and the circumstance we find ourselves in to then live a better life. That is the punchline of my book. Now, all of that is encapsulated, for me at least, in the hashtag Going Alone. So, true, it probably makes more sense to say going together if I'm doing something with my wife, but that's only a narrow view of what that's actually disregarding what the book is all about. When I use the hashtag Going Alone, I'm talking about the big picture, the going out and the coming back. And then what we do with that for the remainder of our lives. What objectives and principles we may develop and refine, utilize on a going forward basis. That's my friend Trevor dinging me. He's the guy that'll probably might buy Yumiko's car. I'm going to meet him tomorrow. Good time to ding Trevor. He'll probably see this. So going alone is the appropriate hashtag, not going together, because going together doesn't have the baggage. On the surface level, it seems appropriate, but it's not the big story. It's not the story of going alone. And with that, I think I've done enough. One last stone finished. So I'll stop for now, and I'll wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care.